Yeah, like I was saying, maybe this time with the mic on. Welcome to the pre-show. We're just going to put on some stuff. This is the no answer period. We will be back at 1:30 with the start of the show. Please enjoy the videos and the slideshow and all that stuff.
Will they make the choice to invest in Canadians as well? On this side of the House, the answer is clear, Mr. Speaker. We will take no lessons from the Conservative, but we'll take lessons from history.
The Liberals have sacrificed the future of young Canadians. The deficit is a massive $80 billion this year. More inflation, higher costs. The Prime Minister...
The honourable member for Calgary East from the top, please.
Numbers don't lie, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals have sacrificed the future of young Canadians. The deficit is a massive $80 billion this year. More inflation, higher costs. The Prime Minister promised he would spend less and again broke his promise and is spending more. He's forcing young Canadians to sacrifice more so he can spend more. After 10 years of this Liberal government, housing costs have doubled. Food bank usage has doubled. Youth employment is the lowest it's been in 25 years. The cost on the interest of this government's debt is more than GST revenues or what goes to provinces in healthcare transfers. And today, the Finance Minister had a choice to make. Food prices could have came down. They could have been cheaper, but again, he refused to do this. The Liberals kept in place their industrial carbon tax, their food packaging tax, the clean fuel standard, and added $18 billion of inflationary fuel to the fire. Why did the Finance Minister leave in place Liberal hidden food taxes and force higher food costs on single mothers, seniors, and young Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we made a clear choice. We chose Canadian, Mr. Speaker. That is the thing. I know the budget has many pages. Maybe my colleague missed a chapter, Mr. Speaker. But let me help him because we have a bit of time. Mr. Speaker, we made the choice to invest in Canadians. We made the choice to protect and build our communities. We made the choice to invest in our young people. We made the choice to invest in our worker. We made the choice to invest in housing. We made the choice to invest in infrastructure. We made the choice to invest in productivity and competitiveness. We made the choice to invest in our defense, Mr. Speaker. And I hope that they will see and their concern will be watching. Will they make the choice to invest in Canadians as well? On this side of the House, the answer is clear, Mr. Speaker. We will take no lessons from the Conservative, but we'll take lessons from history.
Resuming debate, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I congratulate the Minister for presenting his first budget speech, but he spoke for quite some time. And given this Liberal government is adding almost $10 billion to our national debt every hour, it must be the most expensive speech in the history of this Parliament.
Minister for his first budget speech. It was a very long speech. And given that this government is adding about $10 million to our national debt every single hour, I think we can say that while talk is cheap, it's very expensive when a Liberal finance minister does it.
Every dollar that the government spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. And the more they spend, the more things cost. And that's why the Liberals doubled the cost of housing and lineups at food banks. And that's why we wanted an affordable budget for a more affordable Canada.
This government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. The more they spend, the more things cost. And that's why Conservatives were calling for an affordable budget, for an affordable life, after Liberals doubled the cost of housing and doubled the lineups at our food banks.
Today, the Liberals have introduced the most costly deficit in the history of our country outside of COVID. It will generate higher costs for groceries, housing, and for everything else.
The Liberals have introduced the most costly and largest budget deficit in history outside of COVID. The cost of this Liberal budget will drive up the cost of food, housing, and everything else that Canadians buy. And the Prime Minister has broken every single promise he made just 7 short months ago. He promised a $62 billion deficit. He delivered nearly an $80 billion deficit, $16 billion bigger than he promised and twice the size that his predecessor left behind. He promised to lower the debt to GDP ratio. He raised it, and inflation along with it. He promised to spend less. He's spending $90 billion more, costing $5,400 per family in Canada. And that $90 billion, to the Prime Minister's heckles, is above and beyond the promised $16 billion that he says he will one day find. And if he doesn't find them, it will be over $100 billion in brand new spending to respond to the Prime Minister's heckles, Mr. Speaker. He also promised that he would invest more. His own budget document lays out a graph showing that every quarter of this year will see private sector business investment collapse. This costly budget forces Canadians to spend more on debt interest than on healthcare transfers. More than the government collects in GST. That means every dollar the Canadians pay in GST will go to bankers and bondholders instead of to doctors and nurses. All while he raises the industrial carbon tax on farm equipment and fertilizer and therefore food, on steel, concrete, and other industrial projects needed to build homes, a big tax increases on homes and food. Donc, on nom.
So, on behalf of Canadians who are already paying too much for the cost of this Liberal government to heat themselves, house themselves, and feed themselves, Conservatives will not be able to support this budget.
Instead, we will. Our party wanted an affordable budget for an affordable life. And on behalf of all the Canadians who can no longer afford to eat, heat, or house themselves because of Liberal inflation, we Conservatives cannot support this costly Liberal budget.
We will spend less on wasteful spending so we can invest in our country and build our country. We'll spend less on wasteful spending. We'll spend less on wasteful spending. We'll spend less on wasteful spending. We'll spend less on wasteful spending.
In addition to cooking the books, the Prime Minister also rigged his GST rebate on housing to make sure that 95% of home buyers would not qualify for any break at all. Zero, zip, zilch. And the Prime Minister, meanwhile, puts a new rising tax on steel, aluminum, glass, cement, concrete, all the things that go into making a home. In other words, the industrial carbon tax is a housing tax. With Liberals already having doubled housing costs, will the Prime Minister axe the industrial carbon tax so Canadians can afford a home?
The Honourable Governor of the House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Leader persists and doubles down on these fake, imaginary taxes that exist only in his head and on the talking points that he hands out. What I will tell you is this is a budget where conservative-minded voters, people who think of voting conservative in elections, you know what they like about it? They like the hope. They like the ambition. They like the economic growth. They like bringing this country together from coast to coast to coast to invest in our potential, to invest in our young people, and to grow this country to be the best in the G7, Mr. Speaker. That's what they like.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he says it's imaginary, but it's in his budget. Does that mean the budget is a fictional document? Here it is on page 106, strengthening the industrial.
The honourable member may continue now that the prop has been put away.
Mr. Speaker, they say their budget is a prop and its contents are imaginary. We're in real trouble today. Homes take steel, they take aluminum, they take concrete and cement and glass. The industrial carbon tax drives all those things up with our youth unable to afford homes. Why don't they get rid of this tax so that we can bring down the cost of housing?
The honourable government house leader.
Speaker, you know what this budget does? It builds communities. It builds opportunities for young people in our communities. It ties this country together in a common refrain of hope and optimism and investing in ourselves. We're going to be investing in new homes. We're going to be investing in housing for young people. We're going to build it with that Canadian steel. We're going to build it with that Canadian lumber. We're going to build it with that best thing that we have, that Canadian ingenuity that exists in the youngest and the oldest, the skilled tradespeople of this country. We are going to build Canada. Conservatives like that, Liberals like that. Let's build the country.
The honourable leader of the opposition.
After the Prime Minister's depressing speech demanding young people make more sacrifices, I think the Liberal House Leader asked ChatGPT to write him up a little poem about how he could inject hope into his message. It didn't work, Mr. Speaker. Young people need houses for them to have hope. Houses are needed to raise families. Houses are needed to build equity and collateral and credit history. But the Prime Minister insists on applying an escalating industrial carbon tax that will raise the cost of everything that goes into making a home. So with the Liberals doubling housing costs already, why won't they get rid of this tax?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know housing is top of mind for young Canadians, and we have heard them loud and clear. Budget 2025 delivers on affordable housing for young Canadians. It focuses on affordable housing and co-ops. It delivers on GST for first-time homebuyers, up to 47,000 homes that will see a big reduction in GST. Building all of these homes creates jobs for young people in the trades, great jobs for young Canadians. This budget delivers affordability for young Canadians.
Member for Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, the last Liberal budget had a fiscal anchor of deficits of less than 1% of GDP. This budget doubles those deficits, averaging 2% of GDP. The last Liberal budget had a fiscal anchor of declining debt to GDP. This budget increases debt to GDP. Will the government admit that its fiscal anchor is weaker than the previous Trudeau government's?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Speaker, I know they're having a bad week over there, but yesterday we tabled an historic budget to build our economy for Canadians, by Canadians, so we will never be reliant on one country again. We will spend less on wasteful spending so we can invest in our country and build our country, our economy, into the strongest economy in the G7. Mr. Speaker, from Canadians from coast to coast to coast, support our budget. It's time for us to come together in this House like Canada. Time for the party opposite to support our budget.
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, last July, bond rating agency Fitch warned that a material rise in the debt to GDP and a material rise in our deficits could lead to a credit downgrade. This budget doubles deficits and leads to ever-increasing debt to GDP. Will the government acknowledge that it is putting this country's credit rating at risk, not only to mention that it's saddling younger Canadians with a mountain of national debt?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker,
Speaker, speaking of young Canadians are looking at this budget for generational opportunities. We are unlocking new markets for them. Budget 2025, we're getting young Canadians, young entrepreneurs ready to get export ready through our SMA readiness program. Secondly, once they're export ready, we will launch the Can Export program to support them, attend trade shows globally to showcase their goods. And once they have orders ready to go out, EDC will step in to support them to get into new markets around the world. This is how we're helping young Canadians and young entrepreneurs access new markets and create jobs here at home. Thank you.
Actually, like we're living in some kind of dystopian universe where they do this.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is the most expensive in Canadian history. The more they spend, the more things cross. Their so-called generational budget is nothing more than generational debt, mortgaging away our children's future. Massive Liberal deficits feed inflation. Inflation fuels unaffordability. Our seniors can barely buy groceries. Our families are stretched thin, and our workers are falling behind. Yet this Prime Minister, he still wants them to make more sacrifices. Can the Prime Minister tell us what more is left for Canadians to sacrifice?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this morning brings outstanding news of tens of thousands, in fact 69,000 new jobs in Canada. The second straight month of employment growth in this country. What's happening, as the Minister of Natural Resources informed us yesterday, is investors are piling into Canada. They're expressing confidence in our country. The entrepreneurs, the tech sector, young people are getting energized about this positive economic momentum. We're going to keep it going with this budget. I hope the Conservatives support us in it.
This Brookfield budget has the largest deficit in history outside of COVID. The interest payments are topping $55 billion, more than what we spent on healthcare transfers. This means less for doctors, less for nurses, less for our hospitals, but more for bondholders and Liberal insiders. The only thing that's getting healthy under this government are the bankers' profits. They keep getting rich while Canadians foot the price. So can the Prime Minister tell us why he is so hell-bent on making sure his banker buddies get rich while Canadians suffer?
I think it's worth repeating. The economy has added 67,000 new jobs, Mr. Speaker. 67! Even the Conservative are happy this morning on a Friday, Mr. Speaker. Look at their face. They are smiling because they're going back home and they have good news. Not only in the budget, Mr. Speaker, there's hundreds of pages of good news, but this morning they can say that the plan of the government will build Canada strong because what, Mr. Speaker? We believe in Canada.
Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Only a bunch of Liberals would stand up and applaud an unemployment rate of 7% when the United States unemployment rate is 4.2%. This is the most expensive government in Canadian history. In 10 years, they doubled the debt. and now they're going to pile on another $78 billion. Meanwhile, 2.2 million Canadians are going to the food bank. The softwood lumber industry is being devastated. The auto industry is being devastated. Is there a Liberal over there that can stand up and explain how they've spent so much money to accomplish so little?
67,000. That's how many new jobs were created last month. 20,000 of these jobs were for young Canadians. A clear sign that our plan is working. In Canada, 1 in 5 jobs are related to trade. From small businesses to major exporters, Canadians are driving growth and creating opportunities. In Budget 2025, we have a plan to support our entrepreneurs, our workers, our exporters, as we build the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Once again, how do they stand up and applaud an unemployment rate of 7% when the United States unemployment rate is 4.2%? It's actually like we're living in some kind of dystopian universe where they do this. The facts are this. A softwood lumber industry is being hollowed out. 2.2 million Canadians are using the food bank. The auto industry is on its knees, and they stand and applaud a 7.1% unemployment rate. They have spent more money than all governments combined in the history of Canada. How can they applaud when they've spent so much to actually accomplish so little?
There is something to applaud about. We created 67,000 new jobs last month. That's right. Mr. Speaker, this is about building an affordable nation for a nation of builders. This budget does just that. We are building affordable housing for young people. We are creating 100,000 new summer jobs. And Mr. Speaker, we are investing in the tech sector. 800,000 workers, fastest growing job sector in the economy, many for young people. I hope the Conservatives, and many of them do, support this budget.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have presented the most expensive and deficit-ridden budget in Canada's history outside of the pandemic. Nearly $8 billion in deficit. $80 billion. Mr. Speaker, a deficit means spending money we don't have. A deficit is a bill that we send our children and our grandchildren. A deficit is adding fuel to the inflation fire. Why is this Prime Minister spending more and uncontrolledly with...
Speaker, non-citizen Abraham Daniel Abraham was convicted for criminally abusing his dog Simba. Abraham repeatedly punched and kicked Simba, tied him to a pole so high his front legs dangled off the ground. Simba couldn't lie down or sit and was left crying and yelping. Yet Abraham remains in Canada with no deportation guarantee. That's disgusting. Why hasn't the Immigration Minister strengthened the Immigration Refugee Protection Act to make sure non-citizens convicted of serious crimes like Simba's abusers are swiftly deported?
Mr. Speaker, Canada has a robust system of removals and inadmissibility that enables us to take action, Mr. Speaker. I will commit to the member opposite to look into it and get back to her, but what the circumstances behind the incident that she refers to is abhorrent, and I condemn it wholeheartedly, Mr. Speaker.
The problem is, Mr. Speaker, we have an immigration minister that's so weak, she won't even stand up and answer questions to this. I asked about the Immigration Refugee Protection Act. She won't stand up. So I'll ask again. That case is so disgusting. We've had so many cases like this. Serious criminals, non-citizens who need to be deported. Will she stand up and commit to strengthening the Immigration Refugee Protection Act to make sure that these non-citizens who are convicted of serious crimes are actually deported?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we are delivering for Canadians every day. This government's highest priority is the safety and security of Canadians. Let me be clear, a foreign national who's been convicted of a crime is inadmissible to Canada. We will work with the IRB, we work with CBSA, we work with CSIS, we work with the RCMP to ensure that we deport anyone that needs to be deported.
Except for a Pakistani national who was convicted of raping his niece, who came into Canada while being on the UK sex offender list, or Simba's abuser here. This government doesn't take this seriously. In fact, it's so bad, Mr. Speaker, that this week the Liberals admitted that they didn't even know how many convicted criminals, they gave citizenship to. Wow. Seriously, they put that in an order paper question. So I'll give her one more opportunity here. How many citizenships did the minister issue to criminals in Canada? Because her department couldn't answer this.
Let me be clear. Foreign nationals who are convicted of a crime are inadmissible to Canada. On this side of the House, we take the safety and security of all Canadians very seriously, and we act. We work with our RCMP and our policing partners in CBSA to ensure that we act in accordance with the law and the IRPA regulation and act. Thank you very much.
But I shouldn't be surprised. Being elected in Battle River does not an Albertan make.
And voting against the Prime Minister's own MOU does not a pipeline build, Mr. Speaker.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that, Mr. Speaker.
Too bad that minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Canada know that this government has their back. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Hey, of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been made.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Christmas time, will he do the right thing, get rid of this tax so Canadians can eat?
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
Much better with the mic on. Hey, welcome to the NAFTA No Answer period, where we cover the question period, prefaced by a review of the far left buffoonery that has been happening and besetting our land and all the events that surround it. It's like a fire hose of stuff every friggin' day from them. The nap precedes the question period by about 45 minutes, and we'll cover the lower house until the lower house stops showing up for work. We also keep score. Score is in the description down below. We put up the score during question period, and we start putting in questions, answers, free questions by the Liberals to the Liberals. And once in a while, they do provide answers, but not too often. I'd like to thank all my followers and subscribers for subscribing and following, and depending on which platform you're on. We're broadcasting on Rumble, YouTube, and X, so the chat is up. Please feel free to ask anything. If you're watching on Rewind, please leave a comment. Comments drive the algorithm when I am not driving the algorithm down. Well, if you were watching some of the pre-show, you could see some of the other videos that we were putting up. And I would just like to go straight over to the House. Let's transition over to that. There we go. And maybe actually do this properly. with, there we go. No, missed it. Much better. There we go. Here we are at the House. First thing I'd like to do is go over to the order paper for today. We do have some clips to go over from yesterday's House to review. Now, the order paper is published every day at the House. It details all the bills and all the business that's been going on. You can go in here in the order paper at any time and figure out what stage what bills are at. But it's also keeping track of a lot of questions that have been asked by MPs, and they require an answer from the government. And what do we have here? We have with regard to, oh, is this queued up to where I wanted it? Hope so. Yes, so here's a question regarding the polling. Details of all the polling contracts, including the vendor date and duration, because the government has been spending money like it's grown on trees, right? Because it's not theirs, it's other people's money. They just really don't care. So they're holding polls all the time, right? They're constantly trying to find out how they can hang on to power. Oh, when I do this, what kind of reaction is that going to happen? Well, it's going to make all these other people miserable. Yeah, but overall, is that really going to affect our vote? Because that's really all they're really concerned about. With regards to professional services and consultants contracts awarded to the Government of Canada since 2024, what is the total number of active consulting contracts broken down by department, blah, 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 blah. You can go in here and find all now, whether or not they actually provide a proper response, we'll probably not find out for a while. I always have to go back to what happened in June of 2024 when the SDTC documents were requested and they were only provided redacted. So even though they're asking for stuff here, it doesn't mean that they're actually going to give it to MPs without reactions. And I'm just seeing my my screen really bung up here for a sec. It's happening. Yes, it is. What is going on with the stream? That doesn't usually happen. Well, not since I fixed it last time. Well, with regard to Health Canada's exemptions under Controlled Drugs and Substances Act for supervised consumption sites, broken down by year since 2015, how many applications have been received, rejected applications, renewed up, all this money we're just throwing away to try to destroy our own civilization right here in Canada. This is the way our democracy works. And also, as a reminder, when you're watching the mainstream media, they are controlled by the government. Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization provides close to anywhere from between 27 and 30 grand per employee, not just a journalist, per employee of these dying media organizations that every year keep losing a market share because they are puppets of whoever controls them to control the messaging, which is why independent media needs to be crushed. So the government develops things like this, saying that, oh, we will only recognize government-approved media. We didn't have this before 2015. The idea that people would be getting money from the government in order to be a journalist was abhorrent, was repulsive. But somehow, now it's acceptable under this socialist Marxist government that we have here in Canada. Right, so let's get to where we go. So yesterday in Parliament, there was discussions, of course, about the MOU. It's going on every day. And I'd just like you to listen to this question and then listen to a bit of the answer, and then we will break that down. Okay, don't play. Oh, I see what's going on.
Speaker, the Prime Minister has a problem.
A pipeline to the Pacific is very popular with Canadians. Canadians want to stop the practice of selling Canadian oil at a massive discount to the United States when billions of customers lie just on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. But the Prime Minister has never believed in selling more Canadian energy. He wrote an entire book about leaving Canada's natural resources in the ground, and he cheered on the decision to cancel the Northern Gateway pipeline, and his caucus doesn't support one either. So isn't the real reason why he voted against his own MOU yesterday is he has no intention of actually getting a pipeline built? He just needs to pretend long enough until the next election.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we support a pipeline. We support the whole MOU, which is a careful balancing of the economy, the environment, and it gets us away from the United States as a primary trading partner. And that's great news. It also is a MOU that balances the interests of Indigenous peoples and other jurisdictions. We do not support, and we are happy to vote against, games played by the opposition that make a pipeline less likely that the Leader of the Opposition would do this is ridiculous. It lets Alberta down, but I shouldn't be surprised. Being elected in Battle River does not an Albertan make.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Voting against the Prime Minister's own MOU does not a pipeline build, Mr. Speaker.
So this whole ridiculous idea that you can't vote for only part of it, you have to vote for the entire thing of it. So I keep referring and comparing this to building a house. Imagine I set up an MOU to build a house, and I'm going to get everything in play except the last part of the MOU, which is, of course, getting the land to build the house on. I'm just going to keep that separate. I'm going to give somebody else a veto on that. Or I'm not going to call it a veto. I'm just going to give them the last word on it. But in the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and prep everything else to build the house. And I'm going to buy all the materials. I'm going to put the contractors, get everything, spend all kinds of money just prepping it, and start financing how to borrow. And then, of course, then I go to, and then last minute, it's like, oh, no, sorry, man, I'm not going to give you the land. Excuse me? Yeah, so that's all part of the package. It's just as ridiculous whether you want to build a pipeline or whether you want to build a house, which of course means they are not serious. And given the typical Liberal response of doing a character assassination of some kind, that just means that they truly are desperate. When they have to rely just on attacking the person rather than attacking or dealing with the policy or addressing the policy in this case here, you know that they've lost the argument. Of course, that's not the only buffoonery that's been discussed in Parliament.
Thornhill.
Yesterday, we found out that the Prime Minister spent almost $800,000 on a one-day taxpayer escape to Egypt to take a photo and not sign an agreement. Struggling Canadians are lining up at food banks, skipping meals, while the Prime Minister takes their money and skips town. We know that this is second nature for the Prime Minister to live large on other people's dime, but can he at least stand up today and explain to hungry Canadians why he treats their tax dollars like his personal travel fund?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I know the Honourable Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party is not suggesting that the Prime Minister of Canada should not have joined with dozens of his international counterparts for as auspicious an event as the commemoration of a ceasefire in the...
Actually, that's exactly what they're saying.
She has had a lot to say over the last little while. The Prime Minister of Canada represents Canadians proudly, and Canadians are proud when our Prime Minister attends these events and does incredible business with his counterparts from all around the world.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
I will tell that member that that agreement was signed despite the Prime Minister, not because of him. And I'd like to remind the Prime Minister also that in the Toronto food banks got over 4 million visits last year, and they're going to get even more when the price of groceries rises $1,000 per family next year.
So our Prime Minister, of course, always wanting to be the center of attention, has to put himself out there, because how else is he going to keep getting people to invest in his climate scam funds that he has developed? And that's why he's really been jet setting all around the world. This would be, what, trip number 29 now? And the fact, of course, that he had to rent a jet? That's because the government of Canada has access to the Polaris, the CC-150. It's an Airbus. I think A310 Airbus. It's been modified over the years, added cargo doors to it. It has a couple of configs that you can do to it, and one of them obviously is a government config. And of course, these planes are rather old, right? So they don't even have Wi-Fi capability on them. And I can't remember the last time I flew in one, but they're good aircraft. They're just not as up to date. But we only have 5 of them, and they go through a maintenance routine. And we also need them for other duties. I mean, we have troops overseas, so there is a series of runs that need to be done to sustain operations. And that doesn't include the emergency operations that pop up here and there whenever we want to do humanitarian aid, as well as we need to transport our own personnel. And then there's the training flights, because we can't just fly all the planes all the time. The pilots actually need to do check flights. And so do the crew. This is a continuing thing. So even though you've got 5 aircraft, you typically are going to have one in and out of maintenance on a regular basis. So at all times, you're not going to have 5 planes. And then out of the remaining 4, well, like I said, you're going to need one for overseas duties. So really you need 2, because you need a backup for those. Those are primary. And then as soon as the Prime Minister wants one of those planes, well, that only leaves the other 2. And then if you have a maintenance issue on any one of those, well, there goes your last spare that's probably being used for training. So now you're tapping into the other resources. So going to the Air Force to say, hey, I need my plane to go over to sign to be present. He's not even going to their side. I'm just going down there to see how the peace treaty is going to happen. And then they're like, well, sorry, yeah, we don't just have a plane available right now. Aside from, so these planes are maintained by civilian contractors. They're not maintained by Royal Canadian Air Force personnel. That was the decision that was made way back when we purchased them in the 1990s under the progressive Conservatives, Brian Mulroney. So that's why he had to use his own plane. Now, of course, everybody's like, oh, it's an auspicious time. It's a peace treaty in the Middle East. Peace now. Come on. Ceasefire? Yeah, I'll believe it when the peace treaty actually exists and actually has happened for a couple of years, because know them by what they do. And history has taught us that this peace treaty will not survive very long. Not without more bloodshed, because they have not dealt with the reason why there is bloodshed. Which is one of the things that Melissa was actually alluding to. And what this government did during those situations, they didn't make things better. They aggravated it, especially in dealing with our once ally, Israel, which they have not been treating well at all. Next, I'd like to show you this disgusting behavior during their response to this question.
Honourable member for Haldimand, Norfolk.
The Prime Minister promised to bring down the price of groceries. A family where I live in Haldimand, Norfolk, reached out to me in desperation. Despite a decent income, they said that they can barely afford groceries for their family and their household. When the Liberals took office in 2015, the average weekly grocery bill was $159. A decade later, it has more than doubled to over $338. Wow. So when will this Prime Minister cut the hidden food taxes so that Canadians can afford to feed their families?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
I got it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, members opposite are focused on imaginary taxes. On this side of the House.
Catch that? Catch that little giggle there? So they don't take their misery that they're causing Canadians seriously. They think this is all a game, and they are quite performative during question period. They all repeat the same canned answers all the time, and they never want to acknowledge the misery that they are causing, because it will cause them embarrassment. Just look at the response that she gives.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, members opposite are focused on imaginary taxes. On this.
Yeah, it's not imaginary for Canadians. You know, the lineups at the food bank are not imaginary. The prices we see in the grocery store are not imaginary. It's all very funny to you, isn't it? Anna Gainey, Secretary of State for Children and Youth. Oh, but we're giving you free lunch bags at the schoolhouse. Come on down for the weekend. We'll feed you. Oh no, we don't actually. Yeah, with other people's money. Meanwhile, hey, what's going on here?
In Manitoba and across the country. Harvest Manitoba's latest report shows that 60,000 Manitobans are relying on food banks every month, and almost 50% of them are families with young children. This is what a decade of food packaging taxes, fuel standards, and a rising industrial carbon tax have done to Canadians. So, Mr. Speaker, my question to the Prime Minister is simple. When will his Liberals finally stop their inflationary spending and cut hidden food taxes so that Canadians can afford to eat this Christmas?
The Honourable Minister for Northern and Arctic Affairs.
Mr. Speaker.
So before we let her answer, the MPs on the Conservative side have been bringing up what their constituents have been telling them. And they need to do this to remind Canadians who are going to bother to watch this, because the mainstream media is not going to show this, right? The Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization, controlled media, are not going to show this. They don't care about the misery they are causing. They are only looking at the far end of the path. Their ideology prevents them from having any empathy from the misery that they are causing.
The member opposite is from Manitoba, and if he's listening to Manitobans, he would hear that Manitobans are happy with what our government is doing.
Yes, Manitobans are happy. You really think Canadians are happy? Let me know in the comments.
We're seeing $10 a day daycare for northern Arctic communities. We're also seeing the National Food Program. We're seeing investments in housing and
Investments? No, you're not investing. You are spending. You're spending taxpayer money, and all that money that's going to build houses, stacks off a rack, are going to large corporations that are all connected to the Prime Minister. You're not fooling anybody. Let's go and show you some more.
The country. The Honourable Member for Côte du Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Kataskamik, Temiscouata. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said that he could be judged by the cost of groceries. Well, now Canadians are judging him. Groceries are twice as expensive as they were 10 years ago, and the most recent food price report said that the price will go up another $1,000 next year for a family of 4. Today, families told me that they have to choose between milk and fruit. Some are skipping meals so that they could make it to the end of the week. In a country like Canada, that makes no sense. Will the Liberals get rid of their inflationary spending and their hidden food taxes so that Canadians can finally afford to eat? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. These are crocodile tears coming from the Conservatives. They say that Canadians are having trouble making ends meet, yet they are voting against Canadians' interests.
Crocodile tears. Yeah, we don't care what your constituents are telling us. We will giggle. We will say that, no, the people that are telling you this are happy. They're happy that we're providing all this free National Socialist programs to them. Really. If you have been watching what happened with the Stellantis contract, the committee where they brought in François-Philippe Champagne in there to discuss,
healthcare system.
Boy, he's quite the character. If you've been following him at all, obviously, if you've watched my intros, he's in there for a bit. On this side of the house, Mr. Speaker. Some people call him Squeaky. It's kind of a combination between an evil Kermit the Frog and something else. Not quite sure who the other else is. And he's completely incompetent. He's a lawyer, and if you watch his condescension in the committee, I can't imagine him at a Christmas dinner around the table. He's just a wicked little man. But anyway, he's the guy who signed off on the contract for Stellantis. And some stuff has come up regarding what happened with the contract. And just, instead of being easy and just answer the question, provide the information ahead of time, they can't do that, right? They just need to manipulate everything. So, anyways, the truth always comes out eventually. You can redact stuff all you want, but eventually the truth always comes out. Just like governments. Governments always end up falling. They never last forever. Or in the case of Canada, they always get voted out. It's not like we voted another government in. So let's just listen to this Stellantis stuff.
One that can benefit all Canadians. Thank you.
For Dufferin Caledon.
For months, Conservatives fought to get the Stellantis contracts released despite the gag order from the Liberals, and now we know why they wanted to hide it. The so-called jobs guarantee that the minister was bragging about in question period only a few weeks ago was for 4,400 full-time employees at Stellantis. Sounds okay, right? Except Stellantis had 8,000 employees at the time the contract was signed. That would allow them to lay off 3,500 workers and still get the money. Is that why they fired 3,000 auto workers in Brampton, took the cash, and sent the jobs to Donald Trump?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
We are with our workers in the auto sector that are victims of the unjustified and unjustifiable American tariffs, and will continue to fight.
So they're always talking about the tariffs, right? We're in a tariff war. It's unjustifiable tariffs. Well, it's not always just the tariffs, by the way. Tariffs have always been there, in one way or another. It's a normal part of trading. But again, with the Liberals, they always have to create a victim-oppressor narrative, and they always have to create something for people to be afraid of. They always have to do that. Their message is never of hope. It's always of fear.
For their jobs. When it comes to Stellantis, we had a deal. They broke it. We'll go after the money.
Member for Dufferin Caledon.
You want to know what's unjustifiable? What's unjustifiable is giving a multinational company $15 billion and getting a job guarantee in the contract that allows the company to fire almost 50% of its workers. Let that sink in. They gave them $15 billion. They were allowed to fire 3,500 workers in Canada and still be in compliance with the contract. My question is this. This is gross negligence. It is incompetence beyond incompetence. How the hell has someone not been fired?
Now, subsequent to this, they had the committee meeting. And in the committee meeting, the finance minister described on how there was this floor aspect of how many jobs you actually need compared to what's actually being produced. I understand how the math works behind and all the logistics and how you put in your PYs, your person years in order to produce this product. It's anybody who's worked in industry and is trying to look at producing something off a floor understands what he's talking about. And when you put that into a contract, depending on how the contract merges forward, that's all very fine. And apparently it was all in there. It was all in there. They could actually get rid of 3,000 plus workers once they made this change to the floor, and that was part of the agreement. The problem is they never let UNIFOR know. They never let the union know. Apparently, union were there as part of the bargaining, but there, I guess. So, and that's the whole point. If they knew this ahead of time, why didn't they just come out at the time when the jobs were being fired and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, that was in the contract"? But no, they had to hide it all the way up to this point. Hopefully, it get buried in the news cycle, and nobody will find out exactly what it is they did. Now, however, when it comes to the money, according to the finance minister, now, not that we can take anything that he says for truth, even though he did say it in committee, because these politicians, especially on the Liberal side, are all known liars, said that according to the Treasury, they've only given out about 40 million or maybe 400 million. I can't remember if there was an extra zero there of whatever this 13 billion dollars was worth. So they had only tapped into a small amount. Only a small amount had already been provided. So them canceling the contract at this point, or violating the contract, or I don't know, because it seems to me like what they're doing is actually part of the contract. So it's all for show, right? When the minister says we're gonna get our money back, well, what the 40 million or 400 million again? Because I can't remember the extra zero there or not. Is that what you're talking about? It's not the whole 13 billion. But she never read the contract. She doesn't bloody know. She doesn't know anything. Now, there's this guy in Parliament, and he's pretty annoying. And I think I'm going to have to go back over the holidays and pull up all his performances in Parliament and bring them up, because every single performance that he does is the same show over and over again. He's like a bad vaudeville performer. If anybody remembers what vaudeville is about. Come on, Bucky. Where are you? Oh, did I not? I thought for sure I'm terribly sorry about that. Let me double check here. Oh, no wonder. Terribly sorry. The video file didn't get in. That's okay. Let's get on with the show. And bring up our screen. And get on to our first panel. Because this is the stuff that we usually cover before the House actually sits. And I see we're 2 o'clock. And the House has started to sit. We see that they are doing statements by members. Now, of course, Mario Zelaya, one of the many people that we actually follow here once in a while, is reminding us that things that no one thought possible that are on the table. Ministers being above the law, Bill C-15. Now, if you're not aware, that's where they're allowing themselves. They're exempt. It would allow them to exempt themselves for 3 years of any kind of scrutiny of any of the acts that have been passed in Canada, except for anything that's criminal. But even then, we won't even know because they can hide it all. And at the end of those 3 years, when it comes out, it's kind of like, oh, by the way, you did break the law there in that part. And we would have known sooner, but you hid it all from us. Well, by then, we might not even find out because now the government has a bad habit of just destroying documents like they've been doing for the Emergencies Act trials that have been happening. And people have been asking for documents, and now they're just saying, yeah, sorry, we destroyed those. What? Excuse me? Religious beliefs land you in jail. More and more, the Liberals are acting like National Socialists in every single thing that they do. In incrementing degrees, somebody says, oh, you're being crazy with your comparison. Oh, no, if we started going through them. But if we did, we'd probably miss getting into the question period. The government taking away your firearms. Yeah, that's another thing that the funny mustache man following people did in the 1930s in Germany. Unequal value of lives based on genitals. Yes, some people are always more equal than others in the liberal ideology. Government can cut off your phone or internet with no warrant or oversight in Bill C-8. Yeah, that was pretty interesting if that gets passed, isn't it? That a minister can just arbitrarily decide that, yeah, that person's annoying me, so terminate his phone access, terminate his internet access, and compared to the other accesses that they can terminate for you. Oh, and by the way, if you tell anybody that the government did that to you, they could throw you in jail. So you can't tell anybody that the government's abusing you, and if you tell anybody, they will throw you in jail. These are the kind of laws that they're putting through. But apparently Donald Trump is the problem. Yes. It's because they've been brainwashed that way. Now, here's Aaron Gunn. The Liberals want to throw Canadians in jail based on what they say and criminalize the reading of certain religious texts. This while letting repeat violent offenders walk free. They're doing this on purpose. Why else would they do this? Free speech is a cornerstone of democracy. We must always defend it. The reason they don't want free speech is because it is a threat to their control and a threat to their power.
What constitutes a free society? What are the identifying characteristics that separate nations whose peoples live in freedom from those whose subjects live under tyranny and fear? I can think of no guiding principle more fundamental to this question than the existence or lack thereof of free speech and free expression. The legal ability to express oneself without fear of government coercion, oppression, or use of force, which is why I am so concerned by this Liberal government's Bill C-9, a bill that opens the floodgates and abandons the guardrails on prosecuting and criminalizing speech in Canada, including the reading of sacred and ancient religious texts like the Bible, Torah, and Quran. Make no mistake, once you cross this Rubicon, once you accept the premise that governments, that politicians in this House have the subjective right to determine what you may or may not say or what religious texts you may or may not read, we have lost the plot. Free speech is a Western value, a Canadian principle, and a human human right, and we must always defend it.
But they had already been destroying religious free speech. They started in the military. In the Canadian Armed Forces, they passed policy disallowing padres of all faiths to say prayers of their faith unless it is completely inclusive. That's inclusive according to the diversity, equity, inclusion policies that they have created within the government. So you can't say anything that might offend somebody. So that means that their prayers are verboten, not allowed. And that's why last year, not this year, but last year, when the policy had been passed and it was known that, oh, padres are not allowed to say the Lord's Prayer, which we had been saying at the cenotaph since we started doing remembrance for Armistice Day. And now all of a sudden, padres were no longer allowed, disallowed by the policy, which they have to follow or be in violation of the National Defense Act. Because members in the Canadian Armed Forces follow two justices, civilian justice and a National Defense Act. So if you get charged in the National Defense Act, they can also charge you again in the civilian court for the same crime. So they started early in the Canadian Armed Forces by saying, yeah, you can't be religious. And they've been overtly anti-Christian anyway in forces since the Liberals took over. And they just went ahead and proved it with that. But of course, they had to include all faiths. So this is a natural evolution of their complete hatred of anything that might take away their power and control. Now, what happened to the churches and religion under National Socialism in Germany in the 1930s? If you look that up, you may find some parallels of what the Liberal government is doing right now in Canada with their legislation. Let's move on to the food professor. At the Senate today, a cabinet minister blamed climate change for Canada's cost of living crisis and higher food prices. Of course, it's climate change. The Chicken Littles are out like crazy. They're going to blame the weather for everything. And I hear this all the time. Oh, we've never seen this type of flooding. And I think it was in committee. Somebody reminded him, yeah, well, people have seen this before. It kind of goes in 50-year cycles, sometimes 100-year cycles. We know geologically that there are cycles in weather. Tony Heller, who has a website and YouTube channel that is always suppressed, continually puts out the facts. He will dig up historical news articles of various weather situations that happen in areas that today's climate scary monster people, the Chicken Littles, as I like to call them, will come out and say, oh, we've never seen this kind of thing. And then he'll dig up, well, yeah, well, apparently 100 years ago, the same bloody thing happened because it's cyclical. Let alone the fact that I always love to say that the climate modeling that they use excludes space weather. How can he exclude space weather? The actual radiation, in particular, coming from not only from our sun, but anything else that might get past the heliosphere that the sun creates. Or maybe they don't even know what a heliosphere is. Because anybody with a brain could look at what we know from what happens on Mars, from the probes that we sent there, and also from Venus, that most planets have weather. How do those planets have weather? Oh, maybe it's because they orbit a star. Yeah, a star that keeps those planets from freezing into an ice ball, except when the star cools down, which it does more often than it is hotter enough to actually be warm enough to create life and allow life to live properly on this planet. According, again, to geological evidence, which shows that the planet has been frozen more often than it's been thawed enough to allow life on it. Well, we have to be concerned about climate change, which we all know is just a scam for them to do their grift, to control us, to turn us into serfs. And as we know, they're trying to include now a new digital ID. Is that the next one here? Oh, yes, here it is. It's been 2 days since this digital ID partnership between Canada and the EU was announced. Our media hasn't mentioned one word about it. Guaranteed another ask by our Liberal government to keep it quiet for a while. Slowly bringing this in. Now, if you go down in the comments, a lot of people here will be posting additional information and explain it to you. And basically what it comes down to, as part of the slow rollout, you end up being nothing more than a carbon credit counter, and you will be allowed so many carbon credits per day. And when you look at your food packaging, The food packaging will have a little carbon credit label on it. Oh, this is going to cost you this many carbon credits, which will go onto your digital ID carbon credit count. And then if you exceed your carbon credit allocation, well, then I guess you won't be allowed to buy anything that's going to increase that for your monthly allotment, because that's where they're going with that. Everybody says, "Oh, you're conspiracy theorists." Well, no, it's already in place. They're already rolling out the digital ID in the UK, whether they don't want it. Same thing within the EU that we just partnered ourselves with. And just watching Moose on a Loose this morning, and he had a good piece on this. And he reminded everyone that bananas are still pretty cheap, you know, very, very cheap. But this will double their prices, if not more, triple it. Because now, in order to be able to bring in food from outside the country into Canada, as these new regulations start coming in, everything that's grown outside the country will have to meet this new carbon credit scheme. And if they come from a country that has a low carbon score, that means that their carbon taxes are going to be higher, which means that we have to pay that as a consumer, right? So it's going to cost us extra to cover this carbon thing, which again is just a bloody scam. Oh, we're going to save the planet for the future. What? CO2, a noble gas? Which, if it increases after the planet warms, which is what the data has always shown. Right? As it increases in warmth, we get more CO2. More CO2 increases more plant growth. More plant growth causes more oxygen, and then it slowly reverses the trend and goes back all over again. It's a cyclical. Aside from the fact that our planet is on a tilt, which is perfect, because then it cools and heats up various parts and takes it through seasons. Now, of course, it's going to be a super cold winter, and they're going to blame climate change for that. Now, this I always like to do a little bit on the COVIDity stupidity, which is one of the reasons why I started this channel. As a reminder, the Canadian Armed Forces were coerced into the COVID-19 vaccine without informed consent. Take it or lose your job. And about 10% of the forces were released for refusing it, as I was, and the ones that were coerced and remained to take it, to keep their jobs, those that were injured were abandoned. Duty of care said, no, sorry, service is no longer required. And the Veterans Affairs won't recognize the injuries either. And of course, the Vaccine Injury Support Program disallows them to access it because they've gone beyond the time, a lot of time that you're allowed to apply for it. So they're SOL. And those that are in the forces and serving that are vaccine injured, their medical system will not recognize these injuries, and they've been ordered not to talk about it because it might demoralize and disincentivize people to take it. And of course, it's still required to take 3 jabs if you want to go in operations, if you join the Canadian Armed Forces. So when I see stories like this breaking by Steve Kirsch, I just sent this $1 million offer to Dr. Paul Offit to have a public discussion on COVID vaccine safety. Please repost. Now, this is not the first time he's made this offer. I think he does this offer annually, and nobody has taken him up on it. No one is confident enough in the safety of these mass injections to actually take him up on the offer. Do you imagine that? You get so many bots online, and so many people say, "Oh, the vaccine is safe." Well, then you could win $1 million. Go ahead. Imagine that, $1 million. Which is barely enough to buy a house in Canada these days. And Scoops Magoo, who has dug up a lot of information in the past, he was talking about here this rabies vaccine that they rolled out. That is a different mRNA form. It does not use lipid nanoparticles in it. But as it turns out, when he goes through the data, it seems to me the data is getting harder and harder to find. He goes, information, the disclosure of which could reasonably be expected to result in a material financial loss or gain or could reasonably be expected to prejudice the competitive position of a third party. Now, this is the argument that they're making in order not to release data. But we're talking about cats and dogs here. And apparently all the animals survived, the ones that got it, but some were pulled back and some did die, but then they wouldn't talk about the ones that died. But they insisted that the deaths had nothing to do with the injection. And of course, there's all these adverse events that happened. Small percentages of all the animals, but they're still there. Like, look at this, all these. This is how safe your new rabies vaccine is for your animals. Look at all these adverse events. And then, of course, they had all these other events that they say were not related to the vaccine. And then people want to find out, well, can I look at the data to see how you got to that? Oh, no, sorry. That might infringe on a third party. Yeah. Okay. And then, of course, what happens on the legislative side? Well, then if you had an animal and then they mandated for you to get it, then of course, I've had pets in the past and we've always had, especially for this shot, I always think it's important. But now everything is becoming so suspect because they just won't answer questions and they try to hide behind darkness all the time. And that does not inspire confidence at all. Oh, we may have started. Let's see. Are we starting yet? Are we still statement by members? There's so much stuff to get through every day, and we never get through it all. It's almost like we could do another hour show after the question period. And they're still doing statement by members. Of course, the Liberal Party now is in a funding drive, so that tells me an election's probably coming. Heads up, Liberals, the deadline to get our new strong merch is December 15th. So I guess all the El Bozo merchandise didn't work out for them so well. But yeah, so I guess if you're a Liberal out there, you can buy this merch to support your party. Here's Viva Frey. Now, it's come up in news recently. Anyone who's followed this channel knows that we were following the ostriches. And again, they are soulless lizards living in a human skin, these people.
Ladies and gentlemen of the interwebs, you are staring at the globalist 3-passport carrying whore, the member of the WEF, Bilderberg NGO New World Government, Mark J. Carney. I thought long and hard before starting the show, do I do it in my intro golf voice to make fun? Or do I do it in a serious voice because I am actually seething with rage? I have opted for the latter. No, sorry, the former. We will begin with humor, because at some point in time, if you do not laugh, all there is to do is cry or scream at the clouds in seething hot rage. Behold!
There have been a few surprises during my first months as Prime Minister. For example, I hadn't expected to spend so much time dealing with wildlife. Belugas, ostriches, premiers, except for present company accepted, obviously. Actually, there is no need for a mass call because the premiers and I are uniting around projects that will diversify our trade, unlock billions in new investment, create hundreds of thousands of high-paying careers. Or as the National Post headline put it, Mark Carney fast-tracks the road to serfdom. I mean, you can't buy that kind of support, even if we do fund it. It's true, Conrad. It's true. It's true.
This is quite literally the exact same joke that Justin Trudeau made. I'll see if I can pull that one up in a second. We're going to let this play out. Then we're going to play it again only for the first 30 seconds.
Just the facts. Helen's here. It's got to be right. I've got to. Now, speaking of taxpayer-funded purveyors of post-apocalyptic dystopia, Yves-François Blanchet and the Bloc are in the house.
Like I try to laugh, and I try to laugh at everything, especially that which I cannot change. Rage. These people are the worst people on earth. They literally laugh at your misery. I'm going to play the first part of this again because I listened to this and I'm like, did I misunderstand something? Like everybody sort of hung up on he's making a joke about the slaughter of the ostriches. He's laughing at other people's misery, literally. And I heard something a little bit, not even different, in addition to laughing at the tyrannical misery inflicted by that authoritarian terrorist government, the Liberal government of Canada.
There have been a few surprises during my first months as Prime Minister. For example, I hadn't expected to spend so much time dealing with wildlife. Belugas, ostriches, premiers.
Premiers.
Except for present company accepted, obviously.
Premiers.
Actually, there is no need for a mass cull.
Do you understand what he's talking about here?
Because the premiers and I are uniting around projects that will diversify our trade, unlock billions in new investment.
I'm going to pause it right there. So I'm going to leave this open. You got to share this and put this on blast. Laughing at the slaughter of the ostriches. Ah, isn't that funny? And then he says, premiers. But there will be no need for a cull in respect of the premiers. I'm thinking, like, I must be...
Yeah, Liberals are the most disgusting people. So the House is starting. Just bring it up here. That's weird. It's working on the other screen.
Before Christmas is...
And let's bring it up.
It's the holiday.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas. It's the holiday season. It's a time of hope, and obviously the Conservative Party is the party of hope. And so we are sharing that hope with everyone today. But for too many people, life has become too expensive. There are single mothers and seniors who can't buy food, and the Prime Minister is threatening Canadians with a new increase in the gas tax, which will increase the cost of food. Will the Prime Minister, before Christmas, announce that he's going to cancel these hidden taxes on groceries so that Canadians can have hope to eat well? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party, listen, there's nobody who calls that the party of hope. But in this holiday season, I would like to wish even to the Grinchy Leader of the Opposition a very Merry Christmas, and the same to the entire Conservative caucus. I hope that they'll stop inventing, imagining taxes that don't exist, taxes that have never existed and never will exist for Canadians. We're going to offer support to all Canadians. Merry Christmas, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Always with the gaslighting.
Mr. Speaker, I had hoped that the Prime Minister was going to be here for once to defend. Even if it's Christmas, we can't allow ourselves to go against the rules. I'll have to take a question away from the Leader of the Opposition, and I'm sorry to do that, particularly at this time of the year. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. I just was hoping that for once he would defend the cost of living, which is going up because of the taxes that they're imposing on groceries. But it's not just that. There's also crime. The Liberals are blocking their own bail law. The Conservatives have moved motions 17 times in the last 2 days to get that bail law to be able to move forward. And the Liberals have caused these problems by freeing criminals with Bill C-75 before Christmas. Will they allow us to move forward their own law to reprove the damage they've done? Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, just because it's the holiday season and everyone is feeling generous, well, Mr. Speaker, just because of that, you can't twist the facts. The Conservatives spent September, October, November, and December blocking the most ambitious crime-fighting agenda in the history of Canada, Mr. Speaker. And now, at the last minute, on the very last day, all of a sudden, they want to change everything, rearrange everything. We have bills for bail. We have bills to fight hate. We have bills to fight violence and extortion, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives need to get out of the way.
Opposition. Mr. Speaker, let me wish everyone a Merry Christmas, the time of hope. And of course, Conservatives are the party of hope. And we share that hope right across the House of Commons. As as I do with the Prime Minister, inviting him to stand up. But unfortunately for many Canadians, it's the time of Liberal inflation. As they go down the grocery aisles, they see the costs of food rising before their eyes. As the Prime Minister increases hidden taxes on the cost of making and selling food. 7 cents a litre gas tax he plans for the new year. Will he rise today and give Canadians some hope by announcing he's reversing that latest Liberal tax hike?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, Mr. Speaker, rather than focusing on imaginary taxes like the opposition, we stay focused on helping Canadian families, and it's why Canada Child Benefit checks will be delivered early this year, Mr. Speaker. Early this month so that families can have the money when they need it most.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. Hello? Hello? Come on, play. Staying in the other window.
Families, and it's why Canada Child Benefit checks will be delivered early this year, Mr. Speaker. Early this month so that families can have the money when they need it most.
This is weird.
Of study at their own Justice Committee. Well, the Conservatives have been fighting fit. The opposition.
Not a tax.
Oh my goodness. I missed a couple questions there.
Liberal tax on fuel. FR. Mr. Speaker, the member might be suggesting that her own government department is imagining things again. I'm reading right here from the Environment Department's, quote, impacts of the CFR on gasoline and diesel prices. And for 2026, 7 cents a litre, Mr. Speaker. Oh, wow. Another tax increase on fuel. So while the Prime Minister promised to flip-flop on carbon taxes and copy Conservative ideas, once again, it's the costly counterfeit version on his side. That tax will increase the cost of producing and delivering food to grocery stores. For just in time for Christmas, will he get rid of this latest Liberal tax on energy and food?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
What we always seek more hope, and it will never come from the Conservatives, is actually for them to read a full report in its entirety and understand the actual implications. In fact, the fuel regulations do not have the impact as he described them. But let's go a little bit further. Let's talk about the opportunities. I'm hoping he's thinking about canola farmers too. The regulation reduces emissions, but it creates opportunities for canola farmers. They have actually specifically said it is not a tax, and once more, it spurs innovation, creates opportunities. That's what we're about. That's what
It reduces emissions because people can't afford to burn it, you clown.
That the Prime Minister is not prepared to stand up and defend his own tax, but just to prove that it's another counterfeit. The Liberals say that a tax on the diesel farmers use is going to help farmers, just like releasing criminals, they say, will reduce crime. Mr. Speaker, Conservatives have been fighting to end Liberal bail for a very long time. The Liberals pretended to agree with us introducing a watered-down bail bill, but now they're blocking their own bill. Conservatives have moved 17 times to push the bail bill forward, and 17 times Liberals have blocked it. Not 1 second of study at their own Justice Committee. Will they get out of the way so that we can scrap Liberal bail and bring safety by Christmas?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that leader lives in a bit of a parallel universe if he thinks that we are the ones in the way of the most ambitious crime-fighting agenda that has been presented to this Parliament ever. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are blocking progress on bail reform. They are blocking progress on immigration reform. They are blocking progress against extortion, child pornography, against all manner of crimes, Mr. Speaker. Will that leader stand up right now, turn around, tell his caucus, get out of the way of the Liberals fighting crime?
I took one question away because the honourable member broke a rule. We're now going to l'honorable député de Saint-Jean.
The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, we're not ready to start. We'll restart. It was mentioned earlier when the rule was broken. The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, usually at this time of year we'd take a look back over the parliamentary session, but this year there's going to be a report to shareholders, I think, because Canada clearly has become a business. With this Prime Minister, the Liberals are no longer even pretending the fight against climate change is over. The environment, to them, it's an obstacle to trade. With C5, C15 and S4, compliance with the law is over. Why? Well, it slows down business. So much for the Quebec difference. The Prime Minister launched an appeal against Bill 21 as quickly as he dropped his French classes. Did the Liberals realize that Quebecers did not vote for Canada Inc.? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, Canadians voted to build a Canada that's not only strong, but also to make sure that we build it well, and that's what we're doing. We have committed to strengthen the industrial price on carbon. We have made a commitment to strengthen methane regulations. We have committed to continuing with clean electricity, particularly in Quebec, and that's going to continue. We will be doing the work that needs to be done. We are fighting climate change, and we are building a Canada strong. The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals don't have a Prime Minister. They have a CEO. They're not listening to social priorities like healthcare, seniors, and their CEO isn't listening to the ministers. They have to resign to be heard, and they're not listening to voters with their conservative budget. They're not listening to Quebecers who voted for them out of fear of Donald Trump. And their attitude now to their relationship with Washington, to quote the CEO, who cares? The only difference is that a CEO in a private company with a deficit like this, they'd be fired. Will the Liberals remind their CEO that he's in a democratic parliament? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If my colleague wants to talk about a record, we could talk about 180,000 jobs created in the country over the last 3 months. We could talk about the employment rate that's been going down month over month. Major investments like just this week, $19 billion, Microsoft in Canada. We can also talk about inflation that's within in the Bank of Canada's targets. And what's the Bloc's record, Mr. Speaker? No asks for culture, no asks for the environment in the budget, and they even voted against the National School Food Program. They voted against investments in culture, Mr. Speaker. They voted against social programs for Quebec. The honourable member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, do you know what's generational in the Liberal record? Well, it's their betrayal of climate, their abandonment of all their green policies for an oil deal with Alberta. According to the former Environment Minister, it's a fire sale. Their shift to oil is going to sabotage any chance of achieving our greenhouse gas reduction targets over the long term. They're sacrificing all the efforts that older Quebecers have made, everything they've done for the climate, and they're telling younger people, well, you know, deal with the problems. When the Liberals talk about generational issues, is this the generational legacy they want to leave? The Honourable Secretary of State for Nature. Mr. Speaker, I don't think that we can talk about a betrayal. The strategy is changing, but the targets remain the same. We, as a country, are going to meet our goals. But we need to face the changing reality in the world today. We are modifying our strategies, but the vision remains the same, and that's building Canada, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Calgary East. Before telling Canadians to judge them by grocery prices, the Prime Minister should have removed hidden food taxes, like the industrial carbon tax, the Liberal fuel standard, and the food packaging tax. The verdict's in, and it's very expensive. An average family of 4 will pay an extra $1,000 in grocery costs next year. In fact, weekly groceries have doubled under the Liberals from $160 a week to $340 a week. Do executives at Brookfield need to start lining up at food banks before this Prime Minister gives a damn about lowering food prices?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Here we go with imaginary taxes again, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if that leader actually cared about the economy, he wouldn't have spent the last 20 years in this House voting against it. On this side, we're not playing procedural games. We've been governing. We passed an historic budget to build our economy. They hid behind the curtains. The proof is in the pudding, Mr. Speaker. In the face of a trade war, our economy is growing. We've added 180,000 jobs in 3 months alone. I hope his heart grows 2 sizes big. He becomes more focused on affordability for Canadians. Let's get on with building the economy. Thanks, Mr.
Next to Buckley, he's the next worst performer.
Speaker, the Liberals are failing Canadians on housing. They're breaking their promise of 500,000 new homes per year, and their fourth housing bureaucracy is a mess, with their independent budget watchdog confirming it will only build 5,000 homes per year. Buyers can't buy, sellers can't sell, and builders can't build. Yet the Liberals refuse to adopt our Conservative plan to axe the GST on all new homes built under $1.3 million to boost building immediately. Why is that when the Liberals promise, things get more expensive every time and things stay same again and again? Great question.
The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I've got some good news to share with the House. Just this Monday, the Prime Minister and Mayor Sutcliffe announced a new partnership with the City of Ottawa. Excellent. 3,000 mixed-income affordable homes that will be built across the city. And through this joint investment,
Something hinky about that. It's only 133 grand per house, so they're way tiny, or they're not making that many houses.
Build Canada Homes will be financing 1,000 affordable homes from the City of Ottawa's slate of projects. This is fantastic news, streamlining the approvals and getting homes built fast.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill. The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
The amount of space he takes up in your guys' head is really something.
The Liberals voted against the most comprehensive immigration reforms in recent history, despite their promise to get immigration under control. Conservative proposals presented would have boosted wages and opportunities for Canadian youth by ending the temporary foreign worker program, ensuring non-citizens convicted of serious crimes like sexual assault are deported, and preventing illegal immigrants with bogus asylum claims from accessing benefits that Canadians don't get. Why is it that the more that the Liberals say they're going to change, the results are always higher costs, more crime, fewer homes, and more of the same?
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship, Refugees, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We have an immigration plan that is sustainable and strategic.
Why is she answering in French?
This plan will attract the best international talent to build a strong economy. It will bring in high-level researchers to Canada. It will help us invest in recognizing foreign credentials, and it will also help us build Francophone and rural communities. We have bills C2 and C12 to protect our borders and strengthen our immigration system. I invite the opposition to support those measures.
Honourable Member for Barrie South Innisfil.
We found out today the Prime Minister's signature major projects office is directing Bay Street corporations, capital investors and banks to lend or second staff to the MPO, asking the companies to top up their pay. Here's how greasy this is. Banks, energy, mining companies, and Brookfield could end up with employees on the inside of the MPO, giving them the inside track and advice on projects they're working on, while these companies pay their salaries and provide lucrative bonuses. Under this scheme, just to spell this out, the Prime Minister's corporate buddies will be paying to have insiders work at the MPO. How is this ethical?
It's not, because the Liberals are not ethical.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we want to thank our friend for his excellent conspiracy theory work. Mr. Speaker, we think that only the Conservatives would be shocked. Only the Conservatives would be shocked that quality women and men with experience in the private sector would step forward to work with a government that's going to build Canada strong, get major projects done. We're proud of the people that want to come forward and serve Canadians, and we regret that the Conservatives find that somehow...
See, more cultural Marxism. Some people are more equal than others, and that's why they got selected.
Bay Street buddies that are sounding the alarm, Mr. Speaker. If you're on Bay Street and you want a mine built, no problem, because you can pay to send an employee to the Prime Minister's major projects office to help you. Want a reactor built? No problem, because you can pay to send an employee to the Prime Minister's major project office to help you. Are you a large capital investor, say like, I don't know, Brookfield, and you want to fund a green project that pads the Prime Minister's portfolio? No problem, because you can pay to send an employee to the Prime Minister's major project office to help you. This is wrong, unethical, and corrupt. How is this happening?
Honourable Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, I remember being an opposition member of Parliament. I was very impressed with some of the quality people from Bay Street that former Prime Minister Harper recruited to serve as Chief of Staff in his office, for example. So it wasn't a scandal then when people with business experience could serve in the government. And we're proud, Mr. Speaker, we're proud that this government and this Prime Minister is able to recruit that talent to join the talented women and men in Canada's public service to get things done and to grow the Canadian economy.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
While this Prime Minister and his government are looking to stack their major project office with corporate insiders and then have corporations send money to the major project office, Canadians are lined up at food banks in record numbers. Now, the firms paying those so-called top-ups to government employees are the same ones who are going to benefit from fast-track decisions made by the major project office. Why is it that the only pipeline that they're getting built is one that funnels cash from Bay Street to this Prime Minister's major project office?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, several years ago, that member earned the nickname the Death Valley Well Driller. Yeah. The Death Valley Well Driller is that lonely guy out in the desert who's gone looking for water and never finds it. And here he is, once again, winding up the big pitch, and it all ends in nothing, Mr. Speaker. Of course, there are talented men and women joining with the government. We're going to help build the country. We're going to build Canada strong, notwithstanding the naysayers and the Death Valley well drillers.
It's okay, McKinnon. We all think of you as a sucker of caucus.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, we've seen the depths of the corruption from these Liberals, and we've seen it with these ministers, including those who sit in the front bench today, who've been found to have broken Canada's ethics laws. Yeah. And this Prime Minister is the one who has the market cornered on shadow lobbying, and now it looks very much like he's inviting more of his Bay Street buddies to have the inside track and have Bay Street pay for access so that his government can fast-track their projects. Canadians are lined up at food banks, and Liberal insiders are lined up at the Prime Minister's front door. Why won't...
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, it's easy to dream up conspiracies about everything when you've never built anything. When you've never built anything. We should be proud that good, hard-working people from the business community want to come to this government and work to build this country strong.
The Honourable Member for Côte-Nord, Kawawa-Chikimauck, Nitassinan. Mr. Speaker, for Quebecers, the approach of the holiday season is a time of generosity towards those less fortunate. I'm sorry, I didn't understand what happened. There's no interpretation? No? Okay, we'll start again. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, for Quebecers, the approach of the holiday season is a time of generosity towards those less fortunate. But for the Liberals, well, it's not so clear, because they're cutting $25 million in Quebec for help for people experiencing homelessness. Last Thursday, the minister confirmed that he's ending the Encampment and Crisis Response Program as of March 31st. How? In the middle of winter, can the government announce cuts to the fight against homelessness when the crisis has never been so serious? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to note to my colleague across the way that the Government of Canada has put in place the Canada Dental Plan, which is having a major impact on the lives of Canadians. 6 million Canadians are already covered by this program, including the most vulnerable. Many people are able to see dentists and dental hygienists for the first time in their lives. I would invite my colleague from across the way and all colleagues to to ask all members of their ridings to sign up for the
That
Diddle
is the
Web.
worst canned answer ever.
The honourable member for
The answer to
Shefford.
homelessness is free dental.
Well, I think she got the wrong answer there, Mr. Speaker. $25 million a year is nothing compared to an $80 billion deficit. It makes no sense to cut funding for the fight against homelessness. This is tens of thousands of dollars less for each one of our community organizations at a time when they know that the crisis is affecting more and more vulnerable people. This includes women who now represent about 30% of people living in homelessness. That's double the numbers that we've seen in the past. Frankly, is this really the time to cut funding to Quebec and to our organizations? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague. This is an important question. Homelessness in the country and in Quebec is particularly concerning. That's why we have a homelessness strategy. It's been in place for a few years with major investments. I would ask my colleague to look at the budget for 2025, which she voted against. There's $1.1 billion for transitionary housing for people living in situations of homelessness, and to also help prevent people fall into homelessness. I would invite her to review her position on budget 2025 and support us in our efforts to fight homelessness. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, here in this House, all members have to follow the values and ethics codes for members of Parliament. And in the Conflict of Interest Act, it says that it is prohibited for a public office holder to personally solicit funds if doing so places them in a conflict of interest. The Permanent Anti-Corruption Unit in Quebec is now conducting an investigation into the Liberal funny business scandal, the Fling Flang scandal, here in Ottawa. It's a criminal investigation. 2 weeks ago, the Liberal member for Laval-Les-Îles promised TVA that he would make a statement to explain his involvement in this affair. Does the member for Laval-Les-Îles have the courage to stand up and explain to Quebecers his potential involvement in the Fling Flang affair? Unfortunately, I was a bit distracted during the question. I didn't hear the question.
So he's been asking this question for a couple of times now. It took him 4 questions just to get one question asked and answered. Let's see if he gets an answer this time.
See, I will listen again to the question this time.
He has to make it about government business.
Well, listen closely, Mr. Speaker. Listen very closely. Well, listen, it's one of your members. It's because of one of your members. It was one of your members who was speaking to me. So, listen, we'll be careful with the sarcasm, okay? All right. The honourable member can start again. Listen closely, Mr. Speaker. Here in this House, all members are subject to the Conflict of Interest Code for members of Parliament. And it's clearly stated in the Conflict of Interest Act that, and I quote, it's prohibited for a public office holder to personally solicit funds if doing so places them in a conflict of interest. The Permanent Anti-Corruption Unit in Quebec is now conducting an investigation into the Liberal kickback, the Fling Flang scandal in Ottawa. No, but... We haven't spoken about a member of the government, a member of cabinet. It doesn't appear to me to be relevant to the administration of the federal government.
Yeah, because to the Liberals, ethics are not relevant to the administration of government.
The next question, the honourable member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Well, right now, the Permanent Anti-Corruption Unit is studying the Liberal Fling Flang scandal in Ottawa. Just a moment, please. Just a moment. Just a moment,
He can
please.
still ask his question. The speaker can't stop him from asking the question. He can just say, well, that has nothing to do with government business. Move on to the next question. You only deny the question if you violated something. And they're trying to uniform foxtrot themselves. Okay, what's he saying?
So
Okay.
this
Maybe have the
question
volume on,
doesn't
guys.
affect the administration of the federal government. I'm not aware of what UPAC would be investigating in this case. If it's the same, it seems like it's the same question as the previous question. Mr. Speaker, I'll ask another question, Mr. Speaker. Because the media is talking about this everywhere. The member for Laval-Les-Îles said to TVA that he would explain his involvement in this scandal, which is currently being studied by UPAC. But my question, Mr. Speaker, now is on the Prime Minister's decision to choose Mike Wiseman to become the next ambassador for Canada to the United States, knowing very well that Mike Wiseman has already said that he was the creator of the Century Initiative, which wants to see 100 million people in Canada in 2100. And he said that he didn't care what Quebec had to say about it. And Mr. Wiseman is against supply management. Can the Prime Minister change his mind and not appoint Mark Wiseman as ambassador? The Honourable Minister for Canada-US Relations. Mr. Speaker, for the fourth time, our colleague is lucky. His question was in order this time, yet he has some challenges with the facts. He's talking about people who are not in the government, public policy that is not government policy. He knows very well that our government supports supply management. Under no circumstances will we negotiate supply management with the Americans. So despite what he's trying to do, we understand that the facts are still a bit loose here.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Lévis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Food banks are overflowing, but the Prime Minister seems to be living in another universe. While Canadians are struggling to put food on the table, this Liberal Prime Minister spent $736,000 taxpayer dollars on a private jet, Mr. Speaker, even though a perfectly good government plane was available for a third of the price. 86% of Canadians have to go without meat because they can no longer afford to buy it. When will he stop making us pay for his whims while the world goes hungry? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Those who live in another universe are Conservative MPs, like my colleague who voted against measures that help her constituents, like the dental plan for 20,000 people. There's also the childcare benefit that reduced poverty in young people by 38%. I would like her to come to my riding so we can talk about the positive impact these policies have had on Quebecers, and she's constantly voted against. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Lévis. Well, I will speak to him about the consequences of his policies. A 75-year-old senior in my riding spends more than half of her income on rent and medicine. Recently, this person found themselves in front of a grocery shelf thinking, I can't afford this, and she had to leave in tears. She said to a food bank, I'm ashamed, I've worked all my life and I never thought I'd have to ask for food assistance. That is the reality on the ground, Mr. Speaker. That's the reality of their policy. The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Votes speak louder than what she has to say, because she voted against an increase of the guaranteed income supplement that helps the most vulnerable seniors. She voted against the childcare benefit, against the dental care plan, against a tax break for a tax reduction for 22 million Canadians. She voted against affordable housing. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker.
He just blamed the member of the opposition for their policy for making people
and
miserable.
see how they can help Canadians and Quebecers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Winnipeg West.
Mr. Speaker, the Early Learning Child Care Program is already providing families across Canada with thousands of dollars of savings each year. In my own province of Manitoba, the program saves families an average of $2,800 a year. Last month, the Minister of Jobs and Families announced an extension of child care agreements with Saskatchewan and Ontario, ensuring that families in those two provinces continue to have access to this incredible program. Could the Minister
Program funded by all Canadian taxpayers is not saving those taxpayers any money, you clown.
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, good news, Mr. Speaker, and just in time for Christmas, tomorrow we'll be signing the extension of the Early Learning and Childcare Agreement with Alberta. And now all provinces and territories have agreed to continue this important program. reduced to $15 per day, and it saves families on average $7,600 per year, Mr. Speaker. So that's money that families have to put on mortgages, to buy groceries, to save for their children's education, or even pay for hockey. Merry Christmas, Alberta.
And who's paying for this? Who's paying the difference, you clowns?
Mr. Speaker, Conservatives have asked the Liberals 17 times at the Justice Committee to start working on the bail bill. We moved 17 motions to get to bail, and 17 times the Liberals blocked it. They voted against our Jail Not Bail Act, they voted against our 3 strikes motion, and now they're blocking their own bill. At what point will this government stop voting against every single measure to finally scrap Liberal bail?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I'd remind the honourable member that what he calls Liberal bail is supported by the Canadian Police Association, the Ontario Police Association, the police chief in my community, and the police chief in his community. In fact, when his police chief showed up at committee, he urged all members, including the Conservative Party, to actually accelerate the process. He is citing revisionist history. If you go back and look at the tapes, you'll see that he and his colleagues spent the entire fall filibustering, talking about kittens and puppies, not crime and safety. Mr. Speaker, we are here to defend Canada's communities and the people who call them home. I wish the Conservatives would get out of the way.
Fraser's lying again because they're pushing hate legislation. They're not pushing a crime bill.
Perhaps this minister should actually show up at the Justice Committee and see what his colleagues are doing. We show up ready to fix the Liberals' broken bail system. But after more than 17 attempts to prioritize C-14, the answer from the Liberals is always no. It is clear this government is unwilling to take even modest steps towards keeping Canadians safe. And still today, they continue to block tougher bail measures at every turn. When will they stop obstructing so we can finally scrap Liberal bail once and for all, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, after several months of obstruction and delay, getting in the way of measures to improve public safety, my honourable colleague has finally realized that people are seeing that it is he and his colleagues who have been delaying and denying justice from advancing in this country. Right now, we have an opportunity not just to move forward on bail and sentencing reform, but he's actively delaying legislation that is meant to help communities who are seeing their synagogues defaced, who are seeing their mosques attacked, who are
Actively trying to stop you from being authoritarian shitholes.
Campuses. We can combat hate and reform the bail system at the same time. I wish he, for once, would cooperate.
The Honourable Member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
Speaker, it's difficult day in, day out, and see the Liberals claim to have the solutions for the problems they've created. For the last 48 hours, Liberals have rejected 17 attempts by Conservative members to advance critical bail reforms because they won't get off their desire to attack the religious freedoms of Canadians. Canadians want real reforms to bail, not Liberal obstruction. When will the Liberals get serious about real crime instead of thought crime?
The Honourable Minister of Justice. Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, the member from Elgin St. Thomas, London South, has been the main culprit that's been filibustering all the crime bills in the Justice Committee this season, Mr. Speaker. He's been talking about cats and dogs when hate crimes have gone up over 70% in this country. And the reason we brought this bill was to help protect those worshippers, Mr. Speaker. We're doing everything on this side of the House to protect Canadians, to protect public safety, and they've been opposing, they've been stalling, they've been blocking it, Mr. Speaker.
Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
I will not allow the Secretary of State to point fingers when the very communities she's claiming to be speaking for have been the ones to cry.
You're not going to allow it?
The Honourable Member may start from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will not allow that Secretary of State to point fingers for...
I think we're going to hear that line many more times if it continues to be too noisy on this side. The Honourable Member for Elgin St. Thomas, London South from the top, please.
The Secretary of State is is pointing fingers because she doesn't want to look at the millions of fingers that have been pointing at this Liberal government for allowing these problems to fester. Even today, Liberal members of the Justice Committee said that the Minister of Justice would only come before committee if we agreed to wave through their divisive and toxic Bill C-9. Why are they putting conditions on transparency and accountability and obstructing their own legislation? Why won't the Minister of Justice appear before committee, and why won't he stand up now instead of pointing fingers?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, it's just a fact that the member from Elgin St. Thomas, London South, has been blocking all crime bills in the Justice Committee since the beginning of this Parliament, Mr. Speaker. He's been talking about his pets instead of talking about the safety of Canadians, Mr. Speaker. But this is a clear pattern that we're seeing from the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker. They've been weak on crime since they've gotten here. They've been blocking the bail reform bill, Mr. Speaker. They've been blocking protections for peaceful worshippers, and they won't allow the police the powers they need to stop extortionists and pedophiles, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
Under these Liberals, food prices have doubled and Canadians are struggling to get by. There are now 2.2 million food bank visits in a single month, with 1 in 10 of those users being seniors. Paul, a 70-year-old from Woodstock, was forced out of retirement and is now working night shifts to stock the shelves just so he could survive, Mr. Speaker. The seniors that helped build this country are now the ones that are struggling to afford to live in it. So will the Liberals finally stop driving costs up so our seniors could afford to eat and retire with dignity?
Yeah!
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, remember when the Grinch tried to steal Christmas? He drove all the way up to the top of Mount Crumpet because he had everything that he needed, and he was going to throw the gifts that the Who's deserved because he thought they didn't deserve to have nice things. It's kind of like the leader of the Conservative Party, Mr. Speaker. For 25 years, he's had dental care because he's had a job here in the House of Commons, so he votes against dental care for 9 million Canadians. He's got secure housing. He lives comfortably at Stornoway in government-owned housing, so he votes against affordable housing for millions and millions of Canadians. My Christmas wish is that the leader of the Conservative Party comes back in January with a heart that's grown 3 sizes and tries to help a Canadian for once in his 21-year career.
The Honourable Member for
Members of Parliament have the same dental plan that public service have.
Meant a great life, but with these Liberals, that promise is gone. Ryan, a single father from Thamesford, worked extremely hard, but is struggling to put food on the tables. He's struggling to put gas in his car, and he's struggling to keep his house warm for Christmas. And just like millions of other Canadians, he is now relying on a food bank to feed his families. With grocery prices going up $1,000, will the Liberals finally stop their reckless inflationary spending, scrap their hidden food taxes, so our citizens like Ryan can afford to eat once again?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
We know Bob Humbug is just a name for the opposition leader's management style. And thank God the human emotion of joy is not deductible, because the Conservatives would find a way to claw it back right before Christmas. They won't feed children. They won't help us feed children in school. They won't help us build affordable housing. They won't help us give and deliver families a well-earned tax break before Christmas. What's next? The Christmas
Watch this clown celebrate his National Socialism.
Even the Grinch had the good sense to give people the presents back before Christmas. When will this Conservative
He's so
Party
proud of
stand
having
up
to
and actually
support Canadians in a
They
failed
said
economy.
They were Canada first. Why do they put them last every chance they get?
The Honourable Member for Long Range Malcolm.
While Canadians cannot afford the basics, this Liberal Prime Minister spent nearly $800,000 on a private jet. In Newfoundland and Labrador, we have the highest unemployment rate in the country. At more than 10%, families are stretched thin. Canada's food price report shows the grocery bill has more than doubled since 2015, rising from $159 a week to $338. And next year, families are expected to pay even more. When will these Liberals stop their inflationary spending, cut the industrial carbon tax and their new fuel tax so Canadians can afford to eat?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr.
Mr. Speaker, I am so pleased to be able to stand and address the misinformation, the imaginary taxes, and the general disengagement from what matters in our province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Budget 2025 is about investment. It's about building this country. It is investment
On investments,
in
you're spending.
Newfoundland and Labrador, like the rest of the country. Roads, bridges, schools, hospitals. It is support for families, 46,000 families in our province who need the Canada Child Benefit, indexed to inflation. This member voted against all of these.
The honourable member for Long Range Mountain.
That answer is not acceptable, and I'm going to tell you why. A woman in my riding shared a moment that she said she will never forget. She was in the grocery store. She saw a senior couple standing at the meat counter. The elderly wife looked at her husband and quietly said, "I know I need to buy something, but I don't know what to buy because everything is so expensive." The woman who witnessed this exchange told me she went to her car and cried. She never thought she would see seniors in Newfoundland and Labrador struggling like that. When will the Prime Minister finally take these struggles seriously and make life affordable for the people in Newfoundland and Labrador?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Speaker, I'm going to deal in facts. Supports for seniors are indexed to inflation. Housing supports help seniors find affordable places to live. Supports for families and communities in Newfoundland and Labrador. School food program, which another member from Newfoundland and Labrador called garbage, feeds children. $800 a year for a family of two in savings. On and on I can go, and on and on and on.
On and on. Know about all the supports we have to give in a failed economy.
Mr. Speaker, across Saskatchewan, families are being crushed by soaring grocery prices. I recently spoke with a family farm, people who feed this country and the world. Yet after paying their bills, they now rely on a local food bank to get by. This should never happen in a country like Canada. And this Liberal government should be ashamed that there are now 27 cases of scurvy in Saskatchewan because people cannot afford healthy food after 10 years of Liberal inflation and higher taxes. How does this government defend a record where farm families need food banks and Canadians are now being diagnosed with scurvy?
Good question.
God, I hope it's not Buckley.
Okay, let's see if we can listen to the entire answer without making any noise. The Honourable Secretary of State.
It is him.
Speaker, like any
This fucking clown.
disease, this government will respond to it. We will work, Mr. Speaker, with all the officials involved, including our provincial counterparts. But I want to say to our House Leader, he has a very kind heart. He said at some of your interventions as answering the last questions, be kind, he said. So I'm going to say I wish you all the gift of greater tolerance for all people. In the new year, I wish the Conservatives place the priorities of Canada above your own political agenda. In this new year...
The
Honourable
Secretary of State knows that he must address the House through the chair. The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard.
Mr. Speaker, in the Great North and Arctic, families face some of the highest costs of living for housing and basic necessities. In just a few months, our new government has announced several affordability measures for Canadians as well as in the North. Can the Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs share how our government is working, including on the issue of Bill C4's affordability measures, to deliver financial relief to northern communities across that need it most?
Honourable Minister for Northern and Arctic Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, for the first time in generations, we're making historic investments in housing and infrastructure across the North, building homes and roads and community facilities. We're investing in clean energy, better internet, and stronger transportation links, all in partnership with Indigenous communities. So Bill 4 delivers tax cuts, GST housing credits, and enhanced benefits so families can heat their homes and
This internet investment is all the money they shipped over to Telesat that still hasn't provided internet.
Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
the finance minister condescendingly said he was a lawyer and he'd be happy to explain the Stellantis contract. Well, Mr. Speaker, you don't have to be a lawyer or even an accountant to know that 4,475 jobs is less than 8,000 jobs. These guys, these incompetent Liberals, signed a contract with Stellantis that was going to pay them billions of dollars, and it guaranteed 4,400 jobs when Stellantis at the time had 8,000 jobs. This allowed Stellantis to fire 3,000 workers and ship the jobs down to the United States. How do they explain this unbelievable level of incompetence?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We signed that deal on behalf of this government for every worker, every employee, every member of that community. And Stellantis broke that deal, so in our opinion, they are in default. We are going to get that money back, or the jobs are coming back, period.
That's a lie. That was exposed in committee.
Yeah, except when Stellantis was at committee, they said they're not in default of the contract. So they're probably relying on the section in the contract that said they would guarantee 4,475 jobs, when at the time the company had 8,000 jobs. 4,475 jobs is about 3,500 less than 8,000. I know that's hard for these Liberals to comprehend, and that's why they feel like when they fired 3,000 workers, they're not in default. And guess who benefits again from this? Donald Trump in America, where all those jobs went, along with a $13 billion investment from Stellantis. What?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Instead of repeating Stellantis talking points and talking points from south of the border, perhaps the party on the other side should be joining with us to agree that the company is in default, and they should be joining us in encouraging the company to come to the table and either return those jobs or give our money back, period.
The Honourable Member for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, at Industry Committee again yesterday, the Finance Minister falsely claimed there were, quote, the strongest protections for auto jobs at Stellantis. Well, we all know the outcome of that, 3,000 job loss in Brampton and $13 billion of investment by Stellantis in the United States. The contract was so badly written that the job numbers were only, quote, aspirational with no penalties. How can the Liberals claim they're supporting auto workers when there are zero job guarantees in the contract?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Speaking of jobs for the good people of Brampton, Ontario, this new government is making a record $2 billion federal investment for the new SMR energy project in
Not a new government.
Ontario. This will create 18,000 new jobs. Our energy sector is world-renowned. We'll continue to open doors for new exports around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mississauga East, Cooksville.
Mr. Speaker, while the Conservatives stand in the way of progress, our government is relentless in delivering for Canadians, including by bringing forward two pieces of trade diversification legislation this parliamentary session. Trade diversification benefits
the government is relentless in spending money and bringing forward legislation that destroys Canadians' rights and future.
Can the minister share how the Canadian-Indonesian trade agreement will create real opportunities for Canadian businesses and workers?
And Brookfield.
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague through you for his good work on the International Trade Committee and, of course, for the good people of Mississauga. Indonesia is the 8th largest economy in the world with a population of over 280 million potential consumers. The trade agreement that we tabled this morning will cut tariffs and open new opportunities in aerospace, agri-food, agriculture, critical minerals, and so much more. Together, we're opening doors for Canadian workers, Canadian businesses, and Canadian products to new global markets around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, on October 2nd, the Health Minister's Assistant Deputy Minister for Controlled Substances told the Health Committee that no federal funding was used to buy crack pipes. Yet this week, the very same official was caught lying to committee when she revealed that Health Canada was in fact buying crack pipes with tax dollars. Wow. If an average Canadian lies on a government forum, they face real consequences. So, can the Health Minister tell us what consequences her senior official will face for lying to Parliament about funding crack pipes? How about...
L'honorable ministre de la Santé.
Monsieur le Président,
My colleague across the way knows full well that we don't fund any publicly served crack pipes. And he knows it full well because he keeps ragging on about it at committee.
She's like the character Dave from the movie Being There. She's completely lost it.
The honourable member for Nunavut.
The Cowetson Nation Aboriginal title case is an important decision affirming First Nations rights. Let's be clear, this decision is not about taking land from private owners. The federal government must focus its efforts on reconciliation and honour of the Crown. Will the minister convene negotiations with all affected parties to ensure an orderly transition toward respecting the ancestral, spiritual, cultural rights of the Cowetson Nation?
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, we will continue to work collaboratively with all parties to uphold the principles of reconciliation, transparency, and legal responsibility. We remain available for dialogue with all parties involved. That involves British Columbia, the City of Richmond, Musqueam Indian Band, Tsawwassen First Nation, as well as the Cowichan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are promising massive profits to resource extraction companies by fast-tracking projects on Indigenous lands while investing nothing in community safety. Violence against Indigenous women and girls spikes around man camps, including sexual assault, trafficking, and child sexual exploitation, a reality that was confirmed in the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Yet this year's budget offers zero. Do our lives matter, Mr. Speaker, or is this government going to turn their back on us yet again?
The Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
The crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls is unacceptable, and our government is taking concrete action. Through the National Action Plan and the federal pathway, we are funding new shelters and safe spaces, supporting Indigenous-led safety programs, improving policing standards, and advancing culturally grounded services for families and survivors. We know progress must be faster. We will continue working directly with Indigenous partners to implement the calls for justice and deliver real, measurable change. This is our...
A point of order, the Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Speaker, while Standing Order 18 is of interest in respect to the government House Leader calling me the Death Valley well digger, what I would say through the Speaker is that I'll stop digging if they stop burying stuff.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, for the record, it is Death Valley well driller.
I think this is debate. L'honorable député de Berthier-Masquinongé.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you. I have a point of order, Mr. Speaker. With all due respect, regarding the Conservative Party questions that were refused earlier. First of all, Mr. Speaker, again, with all due respect, I believe that questions can be legitimate if they are raising concerns about people that have previously been members in this House. May I speak? May I? Yes, we have to listen to what the member says. We have to listen to the reasoning behind the point of order. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you. Let me start again, Mr. Speaker. If we raise questions about people who have been previous members here or federal employees, so without accusing anyone, we believe that it is fully legitimate for members of the Bloc Québécois to raise these questions here in this House, especially because the UPAC is currently carrying out an inquiry. And if that inquiry were to lead to the conclusion that federal members were involved, I think that could be relevant. The results of the anti-corruption unit's investigation in Quebec. That's the first thing. Now, the next thing is, if I can get the attention of the House, please. The honourable member for Berthier Mesquite-Noger. Yes, I would like the member to continue so I can follow his logic. I will now move on to my second point. Members of the Bloc Québécois tried in good faith to clarify that point. And we had questions about this, and we wanted to know whether relevant answers could be provided. Well, on the second point, I have already made a ruling on that. I did that earlier this week. The questions need to be in order, but I don't have any control on the answers provided. That is according to the practices of this House. Yes, again, with all due respect, I think we should reconsider that, because in the standing orders, it is stated that answers must be related to the question. But that's not always the case, and that doesn't make sense to me. In my opinion, if limits are being placed on this side, they should be placed on the other side as well. Or we allow these relevant questions to be asked. Well, I already ruled on the second aspect, and on the first aspect, well, in my personal opinion, and I will reflect on this issue, but the member's interpretation of this matter is so broad that almost anything could be included in this category of being relevant to the federal administration. So I don't know if I agree with that interpretation, but I will think about it. The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With regard to the first point, I would like to make a modest suggestion. There will be provincial elections in 2026. If the member wishes to run... No, that is not a point of order. It was pretty clear right away that that was not a point of order. Any other points of order before continuing? No. It being 3:18.
Well, that only leaves... Oh, maybe turn down that sound there. That only leaves one more day in Parliament before the Christmas break, and then they'll be off for about a month. And those of us who follow Parliament will have all the material to go back through and bring up a bunch of stuff. Then again, there's so much that we're not covering. I see that we've been getting some chat. I'm very happy. Let's go here and read the first one. The Liberals of the Canadian government. They're the reason why the majority of 6 Canadian provinces are looking to either secede or join statehood. Yeah, you piss people off. They don't want to stay. I mean, they've caused so much misery, and every time you point it out, they just won't accept any responsibility for anything, because they never thought they would get this far, actually. I don't think they thought they would win the last election, so they were just stealing everything they could. And then when they won the last election, they're like, oh my God, we can steal more. So they haven't stopped. They haven't stopped stealing. What's here? Samir has spoken. That must have been ongoing with what we were watching at the time. You were conquered, dummy. Must be in relation to talking about First Nations. Nobody could tell me if your kid didn't come back from school, there wouldn't be a free scalp every time. Oh, okay. So this has to do with First Nations. Well, just remember that you should probably maybe have a look at history, historical history. Go back to well, 2,000 years ago when the Roman Empire was starting to grow, and all the conquering that they did. In some cases, they would go to an area, conquer it, and then remove the entire population and replace it with people that they wanted. So this kind of attitude when it comes to conquering really depends on who the conqueror is and what they want to do with the local area. Of course, this conquering happened at a time of colonizing that was happening between competitive world leaders. I mean, you had a whole trade system that was developed over 300 years as wooden ships were slowly improving. And it was really, international wars were all based on trade. People were just basically I want to hold this territory and make riches from it. That was the entire process. Until finally, ethics and morals started to get the better of the UK government at the time, Britain, and they just decided that they were going to end slavery because they knew that it was wrong and evil. And they took on that that cost themselves, and they finished paying it off, I think, in the early 90s. That's how long they amortized that cost, because they paid it off themselves. So in that sense of beneficence, I can't even say the word now. When in their grand scheme of things, when they conquered Canada at the times and the agreements that they made with the area, you have to realize that in many cases, as these governments were expanding within North America, often they made treaties with the locals, with the natives, in order to conquer. Uh, Certain tribes affiliated themselves with the French, other tribes affiliated themselves with the English. And when it came to 1776 and beyond, well, certain tribes were affiliated with, by then, just the British and very few with the Americans. And as a result of all these treaties and all these changes over time, the attitudes at that time when those treaties were developed are very different than the attitudes today. But the problem is that today they keep applying today's attitudes to the attitudes of the past, which cannot be done. People are thinking that you can rewrite history. Treaties that were done back then were done under the terms of the reality at the time. Yes, things change and improve over time. But one thing is for sure, and that I've seen this in operations when I was in the Canadian Armed Forces in transport, that annually we always had to have operations to be sent up north in order to provide relief for the natives, usually due to flooding. Every bloody year, flooding the same areas. And I would get asked by some of the loadmasters sitting next to me because they were also scheduling their people. They said, why? Why do we go up there every year? Why don't they do something about it? Well, there's a reason why they're up there. Is because Canada insisted on keeping people in these isolated areas in order to say that, hey, we still have people living here, so this is our land. But if you're going to do that, then you have to provide the services. And Canada has not been doing that. And we can just look at the amount of money that has left the country and the amount of money that goes into the pockets of consultants and into the pockets of large firms for these projects. Over the past 10 years, they've added $1 trillion of debt, more debt than all other prior governments combined. And that's costing us $10 million an hour in interest debt payments. The GST, when it was brought in, I remember the GST, because at the same time, the progressive conservatives went and froze our pay incentives in the Canadian Armed Forces for 3 years. They were cutting money everywhere from all those years under the first Trudeau Liberals, to try to save some money, try to pay down the debt. But they got a massive majority because, the last government always gets voted out. And slowly but surely, because they're progressives, they became as corrupt as ever and just started filling their own pockets. But in the process, they froze our pay incentives for 3 years, which kind of pissed me off because I was 2 months away from my a month away from my first incentive. And I was like frozen at corporal's pay, that incentive rate for 3 years. Very tough at the time. And then they hit us with the GST, an additional 8% on everything else that you were buying. So yeah, it's not a good time. But the whole point of the GST was to pay down the debt. Now the GST doesn't even cover the debt payment interest payments. They've completely buggered the economy. Well, thank you all for watching. On our way out oh geez, I should probably look at this, make sure that I had something. Yes, what's this? That's the wrong thing. I guess we'll just go for a regular outro. Well, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock is Blazing Cat Fur Fridays. Please join us then. We're there for half an hour doing a cold read-through of the best news aggregate in Canada. Blazing Cat Fur is coming up on its 20-year anniversary in February. And then we'll be off for about an hour, and then we'll be back at 10:30 for the last episode of the NAP for the year as they sit in Parliament for the last time, according to the schedule. Maybe you should double check that, just in case they've changed the order paper. Do a quick refresh and then go to tomorrow. Oh, they're still sitting. All right. We'll see if they actually show up. Majority of the time, most of them leave for the weekend, but they might stick around for this last time, so it'll be interesting. Let's hope it is more interesting. Maybe we'll actually get some answers, but I highly doubt it. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the chat. If you're watching this on rewind, please leave some comments. If you do, you will get an answer. Comments drive the algorithm when I'm not driving it down with my forbidden words. Thank you all for coming out. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
But I shouldn't be surprised. Being elected in Battle River does not an Albertan make.
Voting against the Prime Minister's own MOU does not a pipeline build, Mr. Speaker.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that, Mr. Speaker.
Too bad that minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Canada know that this government has their back. It will continue. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been made.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Christmas time, will he do the right thing, get rid of this tax so Canadians can eat?
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker.